everyone, welcome back to Strawberry Ink. In the wake of Lee Harvey Oswald's assassination, Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner with ties to the Dallas underworld, became a central figure in the tragic and chaotic aftermath of President John F. Kennedy's death. But Ruby's story didn't end with his fateful act of shooting Oswald. His legal journey, marked by trials and appeals, sparked numerous lawsuits related to Oswald's death. Today, we're going to delve into the details of Jack Ruby's case, the legal proceedings that followed, and the controversial lawsuits that stemmed from the tragedy. Let's start from the beginning. On November 24th, 1963, as Lee Harvey Oswald was being transferred from the Dallas City Jail to the Dallas County Jail, Jack Ruby shot and killed him in front of a crowd of officers and onlookers at the Dallas Police Department's headquarters. Ruby, who had entered the police station with a .38 caliber revolver, was immediately arrested and taken into custody by nearby officers. He was later booked into the Dallas City Jail on charges of malice murder, a felony in the first degree. Oswald was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he was declared dead upon arrival. Meanwhile, Jack Ruby's fate was sealed as he was quickly processed and detained by the authorities. Ruby, who would later face trial for the murder of Oswald, was eventually diagnosed with terminal lung cancer while in the Dallas County Jail. His time was limited, and he spent the remainder of his life in palliative care. On January 3rd, 1967, Jack Ruby passed away from his cancer. He died at the Parkland Memorial Hospital. The funeral of Lee Harvey Oswald took place in Fort Worth, Texas, with a private visitation and ceremony at the Greenwood Funeral Home. Oswald was buried at the Rose Hill Cemetery. Jack Ruby's funeral, on the other hand, was arranged by his brother Errol Ruby. Ruby's body was claimed by Errol, and a Jewish funeral ceremony was held for him. The ceremony was held at the Shearith Israel congregation in Chicago. He was then buried at the West Lawn Cemetery in Norridge, Illinois. The congregation had picked Jack Ruby's body up to transport it to Illinois. He is buried beside his parents. Jack Ruby and his family were known to have been Jewish. Jack Ruby's legal journey began shortly after his arrest. He was booked into the Dallas City Jail and charged with malice murder. After being taken to the Dallas Police Headquarters and then the Dallas County Jail to face a magistrate, Ruby was denied bail by Magistrate Ben McClung. Public Defender Early Bynum was assigned to represent Ruby, who was now facing a serious charge in connection to Oswald's death. Dallas County District Attorney Henry Wade began a criminal probe into Ruby's actions. The case was presented to a grand jury, which confirmed that malice murder would be the charge he faced, and that it would be upgraded to a capital offense. D.A. Wade then announced he would seek the death penalty for Ruby. Following the indictment, Ruby parted ways with his public defender and hired private attorney Melvin Belly, the same lawyer who had represented him during criminal proceedings. On March 14, 1964, Ruby's trial began in the Dallas County Criminal Court, overseen by Judge Joe Brown. The jury deliberated for just over 2 hours before returning a guilty verdict. The case then moved into the sentencing phase, where the jury quickly recommended the death penalty. Judge Brown immediately imposed the death sentence. Ruby appealed his conviction, but the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals overturned it in October 1966. However, Ruby never faced a retrial as he fell ill with lung cancer and succumbed to the disease before the legal process could continue. After Ruby's death, in February 1964, Marina Oswald, the widow of Lee Harvey Oswald, filed a lawsuit against the Dallas Police Department, claiming mistreatment of her late husband's body after his assassination. Marina alleged that her husband's body had been mishandled and subjected to undignified treatment, especially considering her status as widow. She sought $10 million in damages for the alleged violation of her rights. William Pitzer represented Marina in this lawsuit, while Jim Riddlesberger defended the Dallas Police Department. Magistrate Joe Merrow from the Dallas Federal Court initially heard the case, but in March 1964, Federal Judge Joe Estes dismissed his federal lawsuit for lack of evidence. The case ended there, very early, with no further legal action taken against the police. Marina Oswald filed another lawsuit in 1970, this time against Jack Ruby's estate. She sought damages for the emotional distress and hardship caused by Ruby's killing of her husband. Marina argued that Ruby's actions not only deprived Oswald of his right to stand trial, but also left her with the burden of raising 2 children alone. She sought $1 million in damages. The lawsuit was filed by William Pitzer, who had previously represented Marina in her case against the police. The administrator of Ruby's estate, business attorney Murray Lemons, worked with defense attorney J.P. McKinney to represent the Jack Ruby estate. Dallas County District Judge Joe Brown, who had presided over Ruby's criminal trial, also handled the first appearance of this case. Eventually, the lawsuit was privately settled outside of court in March 1971, with the terms of the settlement being undisclosed. No further legal proceeding was needed. The case was assigned to another Dallas County District Judge, Homer Adams. However, due to the settlement, no further legal proceedings were needed, and Judge Adams dismissed the case in his office by signing the paperwork. In March 1967, another lawsuit was filed against the Dallas Police Department by the Oswald family. The lawsuit claimed that the police have been negligent in failing to protect Lee Harvey Oswald while he was in custody. The family's legal team argued that the police allowed Jack Ruby to gain access to Oswald in the basement of the Dallas Police headquarters, resulting in Oswald's death in full view of officers and witnesses. Melvin Belia, who had represented Ruby in his criminal trial, took on the Oswald family's case. However, despite the serious allegations, the case was ultimately dismissed in September 1970 due to a lack of evidence. The Dallas police had appointed attorney George Mullen to represent them in the second lawsuit. Despite this lawsuit having been civil, Dallas County Clerk of Courts Charles Garrison sent it over to the Dallas Federal Court. Due to the nature of the case, the federal clerk for the Northern District of Texas, William Morrow, received the case and handed it over to federal judge Joe Estes. However, after several delays, the moment came when in September 1970, Joe Estes dismissed the lawsuit. The case was not heard in open court, and no financial compensation was awarded. This judge just signed the paperwork to dismiss it in his office. Jack Ruby's case, both criminal and civil, remains a significant chapter in the aftermath of the assassination of President Kennedy. While his trial and death left many unanswered questions, the lawsuit filed in the wake of Oswald's death paint a picture of turbulent and emotionally charged legal battles. From Marina Oswald's struggles to hold authorities accountable, to the Oswald family's attempt to seek justice for him, to the Oswald's family attempt to seek justice for Lee Harvey Oswald's death, the legal ramifications of that fateful day continue to echo in history. Next, I will be covering conspiracies and other legal proceedings regarding the death of JFK. If you haven't yet listened, I recently released an episode of The Death of JFK, where I discussed Lee Harvey Oswald quite a lot. Thank you so much for listening and have a good rest of your day. Please share this episode to your loved ones.